Alright, so now I'm going to talk about AIT. AIT was in San Antonio at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and it was a really nice base, actually. I think that's where the doctors go, and so they get fed well, they get, treated really nicely and stuff. I went there for a 9-week animal care specialist course, and the trainings were bizarre, and a lot of them were cross-trainable for humans. And I think what they were saying was that if we did go to war and we had a shortage of nurses and stuff like that, that an animal care specialist would be cross-trainable or cross-usable for in a war field or something, that would be able to use our education to apply and address wounds and stuff. Some of the things that we learned in AIT, we definitely learned about microbiology. We did a lot of worms. Dogs get worms. Like, that was the point of an animal care specialist in the Army, is to take care of the military working dogs. And we work hand in hand with the military working dogs that were Air Force only at that time. I'm pretty sure it's not like that anymore. It might all be Air Force. Who knows? I have no idea, like, what the MOS is now. Like, 91 Tango isn't an animal care specialist anymore in the Army, but it was. Anyways, so our job is to take care of the dogs. So we need to be able to identify worms and the different kinds of worms, and being able to take blood and specimens, and be able to identify what kind of worms we're working with, so we can deworm the dogs well. So we definitely did like glass scrapes stuff with blood, and scrapes with feces and stuff, to see if there was eggs. Also, we did glass scraping with blood for like blood identification. What was it called? What kind of worms is it? Heartworms. There was some other stuff that was microbiological, but I don't remember. We had to learn how to coagulate the blood. We had to put it in the coagulator that rocks it around a lot. We had to learn how to use a centrifuge and to sterilize equipment for operations. So, like, your different things like blunt nose pliers and stuff like that. Things that you would need, like, if you're going to destroy tissue, or if you needed to clamp the drapes or the dressing for surgical preparation or something. We had to learn how to intubate, and we did that on like these stuffed animal dogs that had intubated type throats, like where you would learn how to do that correctly through a dog dummy. That was pretty bizarre. We had to learn how to do dental care for dogs, and it's the same kind of work that you would do if you were if you were working dental work with people. Let's see. So the way that they did that was, they had like a stray facility or something. They had these dogs that might have been killed. I don't know what they were, but we used heads of dogs, like severed dog heads, to work on their teeth, work on cleaning their teeth. And then they had the ultrasonic, I can't remember what it is, but it spins really fast, or like shakes so fast so that when you have calcification on your teeth, it breaks that calcium up. But if you hold that onto your tooth longer than 2 seconds, you'll like literally shatter your tooth. So like there were like a lot of things to be specific about with that. Helping dogs not have tooth problems. They get the same tooth problems we have as humans. Like, they get the same. We had to skin cats. That was really weird, because cats have lymph nodes in similar places that humans do. So we kind of were just getting like a small scale version of human lymph nodes, and we've got them down here. So I remember peeling the fur off the cat. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even believe what I'm saying. And we would peel it off, and then we'd see little, like, beans. They'd look like little beans and stuff. And then we'd have to cut deeper so we could see even more into it. So we got to see lymph. We got to see layers of skin. We got to see below the meatier layers and into the intestinal areas. We got to see, like, what the diaphragm looks like, the separator sheath and stuff like that, and all the organs. We had to euthanize rats and mice. And remember the first time that they wanted us to euthanize the mice, we had to use a pencil and work on snapping its neck with a pencil, like rolling the pencil so we would know how to do it. And I remember I cried the first time that I had to do it because I didn't like doing that, it just didn't feel good. And then they said, you signed up for this and it's important that you learn how to do it. You're going to have to learn how to do this because you'll be probably put at a stray facility, which I was. My permanent duty station was a stray facility, and so I had to learn how to do proper euthanizations and stuff like that. We went to Texas A&M for a day out, and we had to draw blood from a pig, from behind a pig's eye. There's a vessel behind their eye that will spot you enough blood for looking at, making sure that there's no problems, making sure the blood cell counts are good. We drew blood from pigeons, from the wings, from the inner of their wings, from their veins. Learned how to feed them, how to medicate them. When pigs had to be not euthanized, but where they gave them, gave them anesthesia. Pigs will grow cold quickly, so they need something to keep them warm while they recover. So we had to lay pigs all across our lap and stuff, and I got pictures. I grabbed one of the pigs and had it smiling while it was under anesthesia while we were waiting for it to come out. We went and had to give shots to horses and draw blood from the inner tail of not the inner tail, but the tail of a cow. The outside has the fur, and then the under part that covers the anus directly has a groove in the middle of it, and there's a blood vein there, a blood vessel there, and you would withdraw blood there. Which means you have to lift its tail up, and if it's got projectile diarrhea, it will spray you, which are one of our girls in AIT with us. She was like I think she got the Golden Apple Award because she was like the smartest girl in the class. And it was her turn to withdraw the blood, and it just like sprayed her outfit. We had smocks on her, like these blue suits and stuff, so her clothes didn't get it, but I can't imagine like being so close to seeing a cow just projectily doing that to you. What else was there? We had to learn to clip nails. We had to had to learn to draw blood from tubes. We had to learn how to draw blood from cats. You have to lay them on their side and lift one leg up and then cut off the blood circulation to the bottom thigh, and then you could draw blood from there. Dogs, you can draw blood from their forearm veins like this, and you would just cut off the circulation and then draw it. When I went to my permanent duty station, like, oftentimes it wasn't staffed heavily, so sometimes I'd be in the not operating rooms, but the checkup rooms by myself, and I'd be like, hey, one of the other soldiers, I'd holler at them and say, hey, can one of you come in and assist me? I need some assistance drawing blood, and then they couldn't because they were busy doing something else. And so I had to learn how to do it myself, and I ended up becoming really good at doing it by myself, which was better on the animals because they don't feel as threatened when you got two soldiers in uniform, or like even soldiers wearing combat boots the way they look, and BDUs. We always wore BDU pants, but we had a smock top. When you have two of them in there, it's scary because they just don't know who you are. You look like all official and stuff, so it's intimidating to the dogs. And so like when it's just one of you, they're so much more easy, laid back. They don't have the same sensory in their skin, so when you do puncture their skin to withdraw blood, they don't even act like they'll just be like, they don't even acknowledge that you did something like that. For us humans, we'd be like, oh my gosh, because we're so coherent about it. But let's see, we did petri dishes, we did blood scrapes, and like all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think what else we did. I mean, like, the knowledge was extensive. We had to do the hardest thing throughout the the total 9 weeks of education was medical terminology, like being able to memorize your Greek roots and your Latin roots and understanding all of that. That was really hard. That was like the hardest thing, was to be so mindful of all those words and stuff. I can't think of anything else. We did have a specific dog that we'd work on, that, was kind of our training dog. We'd take him out to go to the bathroom, we'd inspect their feces, and make sure the dogs were healthy and that kind of stuff. Seems pretty thorough. We learned how to do the shots in the middle of the vertebrae for dogs that did have heartworm. We had a lot of classes. We had classes on how to properly cut medication and stuff, so be able to, what is it called, prescribe. So we learned about weight versus volume and that kind of stuff to give to dogs when they had problems, like if they needed to have prednisone, or if they needed to have if they needed to have any other kind of medications, how much they needed, kind of stuff. And we had to learn how to do the math behind that, and that wasn't as hard. I think that I did okay on that one. Like, I didn't hang by a thread through the whole time I was in AIT. Like, every test we had, I barely got 76%, which put me on probation for most of the time, because you're supposed to get an 80 or above. But 76 is still passing. 75 and less isn't passing. And the thing is I didn't go out and play. I didn't go, and they had this thing called the Hacienda, where all the or the E-Club is what they call it, for all the enlisted people to go party. They had bowling alleys and computer labs and recording studios and a food place and all sorts of fun stuff there. And I hardly ever went there. I went there twice. And the girl who got the best grades, I saw her there, and I was like, oh my gosh. But it was a struggle for me to get through class like that, to get through school. But I did it. I did graduate. I graduated with a C plus or B minus, 76-ish GPA, whatever that is. I did pass, so that was good, but it was barely. So, but I was on probation, so they wouldn't let me leave post very often. There was some weekend passes that I did earn from having good behavior, but most of the time I wasn't allowed to go on off post because of my grades. So that was frightening. Anyways, that was AIT. I'm trying to think if there was any other. Oh, I loved the military because they celebrate every single holiday. I got to AIT, I think it was January 3rd, And I got there like on a Wednesday, which I'm so glad I got there that early because I had jet lag so bad just from Utah to Texas. I had jet lag so bad I literally had to sleep for like 3 days straight um, when I got there. So um, when I got there, I was like, okay, when are we starting? Because I was like, oh, maybe it starts the 4th because I had to be there the 3rd. And they're like, oh, no, we don't start till next Monday. And that was like 5 or 6 days away. I'm like, what? Why are we starting then? Why do I have to be here now? But I guess there was like people still celebrating Three Kings holiday and stuff at the beginning of January, like the 3rd or 4th of January or something. And so it gave them a couple extra days. So like everyone who didn't celebrate it, they didn't have to do anything. We got to sleep all day and go to mess hall and stuff and eat and stuff, but we didn't have to do any like major chores or anything. Just keep our room tidy and make sure we weren't out fraternizing with anyone. Um, let's see. We had a lot of privileges in AIT, and San Antonio was a beautiful place. Fort Sam Houston was an incredible post. I really, really enjoyed that. There were several holidays throughout the summer while I was in at my permanent duty station. I remember there was like always a 4-day holiday every month. Seemed like every month. Plus, I worked when I was in the military and I went to my permanent duty station. Mondays were training days, so we did half a day in the veterinarian clinic. It was a stray facility. We did half a day there. Then the rest of the half, like after 12 o'clock, we would go do training. So we'd go up to Savannah or we'd go to South Carolina, Parris Island. There was Hunter Army Airfield that we worked with. We worked with Parris Island, South Carolina. And then we'd even go down to Moody Air Force Base, which is down southern Georgia. And I was located in Hinesville at Fort Stewart, Georgia. And then there was one time particularly, even then, that I needed to drive my lieutenant colonel. I had to escort him down to Florida, and I cannot remember what part it was, but there was like a post down there, and he had to do some training and some overseeing and stuff. So like our span of who we worked with was like, it was massive, and we had days off all the time. So like I wouldn't have even used all 30 days of vacation time that they give you. You get 30 days paid vacation. Then you get paid your normal, but there's so many 4-day weekends. And then so, like I was saying, I had half day of work Monday, then we would do training, but that training was fun, and then we'd go eat afterwards. And then Fridays was a half a day that we would serve out at Hunter Army Airfield, their veterinarian clinic for all of the pets that lived there. The military personnel pets and stuff that needed shots and stuff would come out Friday, and we were done by noon, and then we would drive back to Hinesville. Was 40 miles away, and so like our Mondays and Fridays were short. So essentially, we had like 3 days a week where it was where we worked, and that was it. And then honestly, like once a month, it seriously seemed like once a month we'd have a 4 or 5 day weekend. So it was like it just seemed like it was too easy. But I was not in the right mind space. I was really my son was already 5. My first son was 5, and so I was really ready to have another baby. I didn't want huge age gaps between my kids, and I finally ended up getting pregnant, and then I did lose the babies. It was a set of twins in June, like the end of June and into July, and then ended up getting pregnant again in August with the daughter. It was a live birthing in April, like that August, and so I ended up having her in April, and I was able to separate, and I separated in November. They wanted to make sure that it was a full, like a really, like a good carry, a good carriage, I guess, for pregnancy before they let me go. So, there was a lot of emotional things, like, you're pregnant, so you're already dealing with emotions. Then losing the babies was really hard. That was emotionally something I hadn't experienced yet at that time, and I was devastated. And then the second one, they had me on like really calm work or even bed rest for some of those days because of how they thought maybe it would have, like the ECG hormone would be lost easily if I didn't have rest and stuff. So there wasn't a lot that I was doing once I hit that permanent duty station, but I just remember while I wasn't concerned about that for a couple of months, it just seemed like there was always vacations and it was minimal work anyways. So all right, another 20-minute video. Let's see. I probably could make this 30 minutes and just run it. We did a lot when the military working dogs from the Air Force did come. They had muzzles on. Their masters would put muzzles on them, and I'm so glad they did. They sounded like freaking bears. Like they were massive dogs, and they were aggressive, and they growled, and their growl was so deep, and like made the hair on your back just raise. It was so creepy, and I so did not want to work on those dogs. They were too frightening, and I was like, I don't care if they have a muzzle. They sound like they're gonna kill you with their growl. I hated it so bad. But I only saw them twice the whole time I was there. The next thing, okay, so when I escorted my lieutenant colonel down to, I keep thinking it's Tampa, Florida. I think there's a post out there. And, the veterinarian clinic out there, they were saying, man, we've just been struggling with keeping up with the raccoons. And I had to sneeze, I'm sorry. We've just been having a hard time keeping up with the raccoons. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, like, raccoons, they're wild. That's just what they do. That's their nature. Well, somebody over there at that stray facility, I think it was Tampa. I could be wrong. I know I said that already, but I'm just trying to, like, brush it over in my mind to see if there might have been something else. But they're like, we're just struggling. We've got such an outbreak of raccoons. And I was like, what do you mean by an outbreak of raccoons? And they're like, well, we keep on catching them, and so they keep on. So what they were telling me was that they said that raccoons, 90% of raccoons carry rabies. And so every time they would catch a raccoon, they would send the head, because the brain has to stay intact, they would cut the heads off of these raccoons and send it to the CDC because they were raccoons, And I was like, oh no, you guys. I'm like, it's not 90% of raccoons have rabies. It's 90% of raccoons with rabies are asymptomatic. Like, they don't show symptoms. You won't know if they did or didn't. But that's if they have rabies. Not 90% of raccoons have rabies. If they did, we'd have a lot less population. Oh my gosh, that felt so bad. And I told the lieutenant colonel, which I didn't really have a lot of liberty to talk to him because he was like, he was too high up in the chain of command to talk about it. But I was like, do I have the right to speak? And just kind of like told him what they had told me. So he went and educated them. And he's like, no more killing the raccoons. You're going to have to keep them alive. But I just thought that was really weird. Like, any animal that shows any sign of rabies, that you have to use some kind of a thing, and you have to cut their head off. You have to decapitate them, and then you have to send the entire head to the CDC, and then they'll investigate it to see if the brains were positive with rabies or not. I think that's sad. Like, that's just, and that's the only way you can do it. Like, if the brains aren't intact, it's not going to be a valuable inspection. Like, it has to all be together. So, and that's the way that they do it. I know it's a lot of details, a lot of graphicism and stuff. Like, it's bad, And you run a stray facility, and that one at that time, we had to euthanize a lot of animals. And there was some things that I really didn't like about some of my comrades, that when they euthanized them, they were kind of ornery about it, cussing at the animals and stuff. And when they were injecting them, and like it wasn't already bad enough that they were losing their life, but to leave with anger and somebody swearing at them and stuff, that bothered me so bad. And so I opted to be the one to administer the euthanizations, because I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't think they wanted to do it either. You don't want to see, like, who am I to administer that? But at the same time, not that it's an excuse, but it was my job. And I had sworn in to do it, and they were telling me that I could go to jail, or that they could court-martial me and stuff if I didn't do my job. And that, it was leverage enough, so I did my job, and I just, I'd always just send them with a prayer, and I know that's not, it might be kind of psychotic, isn't it? It was awful. It was awful. But I opted to be the one to do it, so that it wasn't such a, if it had to be done, then it be done in a form of peace, in a form of love, and wishing them to, like, the hands of God or something, That was where my heart was with it. I'm glad I didn't stay there. I'm glad I was, it was frustrating. That was bad times. That was a bad scenario. So, yeah, I remember we had to do a lot of inventory, and when I had gotten pregnant, I couldn't do the cat cleaning. Like, they had a stray facility for kittens and cats and stuff, and I couldn't go and do their cleaning their boxes and stuff because of toxemia, or toxoplasmosis, which is the disease the cats carry and stuff. So I don't think the comrades seem to like me too much. Because they're like, she's shirking her responsibility and stuff. So I was just kind of glad to get out of there. I think we just had a lot of misunderstandings, and I was jealous. The the captain at the time was like, she was single, and then there were other single comrades that I had, and so they'd spend time. They had something in common, and I was married and pregnant, and not I didn't have that common space. So I just felt like, kind of like I was an outcast, because I didn't want to go out and go clubbing and stuff, or go out or if a guy walked in that was cute and, gawk at him and stuff, that wasn't what I was about. I couldn't do that. Like, that's not who I am. I'm not somebody who's just like, if I'm in a marriage, I don't even look, kind of thing. So, like, I just didn't have anything in common with the people. They were good people, I know they had hearts of gold. We just didn't always see eye to eye, and I felt I was so insecure. I was a really insecure person. I just felt like, like, when they told me that they thought I was, like a beast, like I would kick someone's butt by the way I looked and stuff, I was like, oh. I wish I maintained that fear or whatever, like maintained that reputation of being strong, but I, like, quickly shown how big of a wuss I was, because I was like, I'm too nice, and I didn't, like, always watching out for stepping on other people's toes and stuff. And so I just, I was like, I would never hurt somebody. I've never been good at hitting people or getting violent and stuff. So that's that. Anyway, so there's basic training, AIT, and my experiences in my permanent duty station. When I lived in Georgia, we had a pond in front of our mobile home, and this was like my favorite story of all. And there was an alligator that lived in that pond, and we weren't supposed to feed alligators in Georgia. It's illegal, but I didn't know that at the time. I'm from Utah. Like, I don't know what rules there are about alligators, and it was in a very secluded backwoods of Georgia. So there weren't any signs saying, please don't feed the alligators or anything. I was just like, it was an experience. And we got close to this alligator. Like, we fed it all the time, so it knew that we were going to feed it, and it would come up on shore, and we'd already fed it, so it wasn't going to bite us or anything. But we had bought a new little puppy from the stray facility at the post that I worked at. And it was a hot summer day, and she was like sitting in the pond because it was hot, and the water was even warm too. And she'd just sit in the water, and the alligator was really close, like within 3 feet. And I'm yelling at her, Tinkerbell, get out of there, you stupid dog. Like, I was like crying because we hadn't fed the alligator, and she was little. The puppy was little, and I was like, get out of there. And I was like trying to speak with the most persuasion possible, and she finally got up and got out of there, and the alligator didn't come after her or anything. She finally got up and out of there, but I guarded her with my life for the rest of the time that we lived there. I'm like, you're not going outside unless I'm right there with you and you're on a leash, because that was too frightening that she didn't know to come. She was so little and she was so cute, but they were so close, and I'm sure she just thought it was a floating log. And now, don't they all? That log is gonna bite you. Anyways, that was like one of the scariest things. We had missionaries come over for dinner on Wednesday nights, and they would take pictures of this alligator up on the shore where their feet are, and it's not biting at them or coming after them to eat them or anything. And their moms would write them and say, "What are you doing, being so close to an alligator?" Like so frightened and stuff. But we just fed it a lot of hot dogs and chicken and stuff from our freezer and whatever. And so, like, I don't think he got hungry. And then finally, the landlord that lived an acre away got some professional alligator removers, and they threw a hat over his eyes and then laid down on him and wrapped his mouth with a rubber band. And I was there, and I watched the whole thing, and it was hissing, like this growl and hiss at the same time. And I got to pet him before they took him away, kind of thing. So it was really cool. What is that? Is that a mole? I got a mole. Wow, I didn't know I had that there. That's crazy. It's a dark mole. I haven't seen it. I'm dark mole. Just kidding. Anyway, so those are some of the stories we had. Just story time. AIT, basic training, permanent duty station, veterinarian clinics, animal care specialists. There's a lot of good, some bad and good. So I recommend military life to anybody who's single, especially if you're married. I recommend it too, as long as there's as long as there's an understanding for, like, if it's a father, I think it's okay. I don't think mom should leave the house. But I mean, that's the whole, like, life is changing. Like, a lot of dads are kind of in more domesticated positions, and oftentimes women are the ones out breadwinning and stuff. So, I mean, just be safe with your thinking, and if you feel like it's right, it's a good way to make money. It's a good profession.